What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Homestand Sports Show. I am Justin Pooni, joined with MIKEY Singh. Albert Vartani's out with the flu. He's day-to-day right now, MIKEY. Hopefully he will be back tomorrow. But I want to thank you for joining us today on a Monday. Big weekend in the world of sports and also a big weekend in the world in general. It was the Oscars last night. Did you watch any of the Oscars at all?
I did not. You know what? For me, I find it tough to consume as many movies as I used to nowadays. With Netflix and with other streaming services, the amount of episodes that they drop that are like 40 to 50 minutes, that's already a big commitment.
That fills up all your time already,
That's
right?
already a really big commitment. You watch 3 of those, that's a movie.
Exactly.
So I didn't dive into it the way that I really have in past years.
I watched zero amounts of the Oscars last night.
Ooh.
There was no slap apparently as well, which is the first in a year. The Cocaine Bear did make an appearance, which was interesting. But let's talk sports because that's what we do best. Scottie Scheffler won the Players' Championship, shot a 17 under at TPC Sawgrass. MIKEY, it's kind of obvious it's the Scottie Scheffler era in the world of golf. Now, he has to be the best player in the world, no?
He definitely is. I know you have John Ram and Rory McIlroy, but by the way, Rory McIlroy did not make the cut here at TPC. So you have to imagine it's Scottie Scheffler's era. I love some stories from this past weekend. First one, notable one, obviously with TPC Sawgrass, the big infamous hole is the 17th hole.
All those aces,
right?
there's so many holes in ones.
There were so many people hitting it into the water. Like right before Scheffler's going up for his last round at 17 there, he's watching people go before him all hit it into the water. Exactly. So you're thinking, even though you have a 5-shot lead at this course, it's never safe.
Never safe, exactly.
So as a fan, you love it, but apparently the players aren't the biggest fan of that. Yeah. So I found that really interesting. Also, Scottie Scheffler's grandma walking the course with him.
She's 88.
Yeah.
I'm 26 and I can't even walk a full 18. I need the golf cart the whole time. I have no chance I'm walking a full 18 holes like that. But shout out to Scottie Scheffler. Shout out to his grandma.
Shout out to his grandma.
Shout out to the Boston Bruins. The fastest team in NHL history to get 50 wins. Yeah. They clinch a playoff spot. MIKEY, they got a chance to, set history. The record's at 62 wins. The Tampa Bay Lightning, of course, set that, and the Detroit Red Wings in the 90s. I don't want to see them break the record because the track record of that is not good. Of course, the Lightning got waxed in the first round by Columbus.
That's the thing.
And Detroit did win the Stanley Cup. Do you think the Bruins go for this record?
You see this in every sport where a lot of teams invest so heavily into getting some of those regular season accolades that it does wear off on them come playoff time because they treat this regular season accolade, which is an amazing accomplishment, take nothing away from that, but they treat it as almost their Stanley Cup push, right? And we know how much that can wear a team down. So there is risk in doing that.
The pressure too, like you think about it, like this team has been breaking records after records this whole season, right? And they're so prohibitively the Stanley Cup favorites to add even more pressure of being the best regular season of all time.
Ooh.
That to me, I would just like, you know what? Look, we got the 100 points. We clinched the playoff spot. We pretty much got first place in the bag. Just take it easy and, ride it out and lessen the expectations a bit. But then what people will say is, well, you want me playing your best hockey going into the playoffs too, right?
That's the thing, right? You risk that. And this Bruins team, Justin, they're so good, so deep. From the goaltender, you got Linus Ullmark, who is turned into an absolute stud back there. He could be having the best season as a goalie overall in the NHL this year. They got a great defense in front of him. Charlie McAvoy and Hampus Lindholm anchoring that defense. And of course, you still have the guys up top. Bergeron, Marchand. And I love the Tyler Bertuzzi ad as well for that group. This is a team that if there is a team out there that can have a fantastic regular season and do it in the playoffs, we know their experience. They've done in the playoffs before. They play that playoff style of hockey. If there's a team that I think that can do that, I think it's the Boston Bruins, right?
I think so. I mean, they're the favorites right now. Saturday night, there's a superstar matchup in Toronto. Your boy, Austin Matthews, up against Connor McDavid and the Oilers. Leafs, of course, won that game. But my biggest takeaway was a little scuffle that Matthews and McDavid got into. And if you didn't see it, well, here it is right here.
It's the initial part. You get a good little battle between two. There's the takedown. No arm goes up there. Now you get the retaliation.
I love it. I love that, MIKEY.
It's because, you know what? In the NHL, you see these narratives built all the time. Like it's Crosby versus Ovechkin. Crosby and Ovechkin never really lined up head-to-head. Like Ovechkin's a winger, Crosby's a centerman. This one actually lived up to that expectation of McDavid versus Matthews. I think we've seen McDavid and McKinnon live up to that hype as well, where they go back and forth. But the fact that these two teams, these two players, who by the way are absolutely aware of the narrative about these two guys, the fact that they're buying into that and leaning into that a little bit, as a fan, you love that.
You think what it took the Crosby-Ovechkin rivalry to the next level was they played in the playoffs so many times, right? Now, the only way these two teams are going to play in the playoffs if they meet in the Stanley Cup Finals. But that building was electric on Saturday. Yeah. It was it was a chippy game. And we're going to talk about that more. Matthew Barnaby will be on the show, so we're going to dive a little bit more into the Michael Bunting and Evander Kane situation. But going back to these two, 60 goals last year for Matthews. McDavid's probably going to get 60, maybe even 70 this year. I want to see this. I think the NHL scriptwriters need to write this in the script that we need to see Matthews and McDavid in the Stanley Cup Finals.
It is a bit of a shame that McDavid's on the West Coast there, because obviously I think the biggest hockey markets are in the East Coast, and we don't get to experience just how dominant of a force he is night in, night out. Obviously people tune in and they see him, and now he's become the face of the NHL. I think there's no debate about that, although I think the league can do a little bit better in marketing him in that standpoint.
Yeah.
But the fact that you're right, he came to Toronto. Toronto was electric for it. It's because of Connor McDavid versus Austin Matthews. This series lived up to the hype. And also, with the Leafs getting their butt whooped by the Oilers a couple of weeks back, it added some more fuel to the fire. So what a game.
Little bit of revenge. So we're going to stick with the Toronto sports talk. Sara Poraria of Room 442 is going to be joining us after this to talk about Mikey squad, Toronto FC, and another disheartening performance. Welcome back to the Homestand Sports Show. Joining us, Room 442 zone, a personal close friend of ours, Sara Poraria. Sara, what's up?
Great intro. Oh my God.
A personal close
friend. Okay. So we're going to go around the world of soccer, guys. Your two expertise. But let's start off in Toronto, where TFC once again blew another lead, drawing Columbus 1-1. Sara, I'm going to start off with you. What do you see from TFC so far in this season? What is going on with them?
Not a whole lot, to be quite honest with you. I mean, they've picked up injuries in their first two games. We know that. There's a lack of communication, it seems, in the midfield. And honestly, it's embarrassing, and they need to be doing better.
Embarrassing, Mikey. Can you back up your boys in red there or no?
I mean, it's been a tough start to the season, right? They became the first team in Major League Soccer history, and I know it's not a long history, it's MLS, but it's still almost over 2 decades now of soccer that took a lead in each of their first 3 matches to only blow that lead.
Like I said, embarrassing.
So that's tough. But if you were to, let's say, spin it in a positive direction, the first game against DC United that TFC played, they held the lead 2-1 heading into the 89th minute of that game. And then they gave up 2 goals. If in a different world, because it didn't happen in this one, but in a different world, TFC were to hold on to that lead and they won that game, we're talking about a Toronto FC team that is unbeaten through its first 3 matches and has 5 points out of a possible 9. So it just goes to show how fine the margins are sometimes when you look at a team's season as a whole. But I do agree with Sara. The football that they're playing right now, it's not pretty to watch. And it's led to Federico Bernardeschi being a little frustrated.
Yeah, you tweeted that out. He was very unhappy with the standards. Question for both of you. I'm going to give it to Mikey first. Bob Bradley, if the team continues to play like this, how long or how short is his leash at the helm of TFC?
That's a really good question. I think it's longer than a lot of people expect. I know every time you open up social media, you're hearing the Bob Bradley out, the Bradley out, the Bradley bunch should go. We gotta look at this partially in the sense that last season, entirety of last season, I know Insigne and Bernardeschi came halfway through that year. That was a rebuilding year for Toronto FC. They really didn't have much expectations. And when you look at the way the second half of the season played out with some personal issues with Lorenzo Insigne, they ran into some injury problems. You know, they were playing with house money down the stretch there. It didn't work out. This year, it's a separate year. Expectations are raised. But we're only 3 games into a very, very long season that plays all the way until October, November. So they're nowhere close to sacking Bob Bradley. But if it goes in this direction the entire year, you do have to wonder if maybe some other changes are going to be made, and that includes Bob Bradley and maybe some other people as well.
Sarah, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, we spoke about this last season, and I already had my concerns about Bob Bradley. Now, what thing is with coaches is that they can be a good coach and just not fit at a team. And I think that might be the case with Bob Bradley and TFC. I don't think he's not talented. I mean, we know that he is.
The resume, right?
Exactly. But that doesn't mean that he's the right coach for this team. Last season, like you mentioned, they had a ton of injuries, but we're seeing it again this season, which is unfortunate. But then it comes down to, okay, well then, like, what are we gonna do about it? And if that's the guy at the head, it might just not be the right fit, and like something needs to happen, because I know it's only 3 games in, but it's been disappointing. And there are several injuries already, right? We know up front with Insigne, Akinol, and Diomande. That's not great.
Yeah, Mikey, you are Mr. TFC, of course. Give us the latest on Lorenzo Insigne and what's up with him and potentially, his injury status going forward.
For sure. So prior to Friday's match, it really sounded, or Saturday's match, speaking of Bob Bradley on Friday, it really sounded like Lorenzo Insigne was going to play this weekend. Bob Bradley used the words hopeful and optimistic that Insigne would feature in that match. Turns out on Saturday, he wasn't on the match day squad whatsoever, not fit enough to make the bench, and obviously not fit enough to start. So that is, interesting that that's the way that it played out. I think what happened was on Friday after training, you go and obviously you check in on Insigne, and he tells Bob Bradley he's still sort of feeling something. We got an update that it is a groin injury, and we know no matter what sport, soccer, hockey, basketball, groin injuries are tricky to identify. So in terms of a timeline, here's what Bob Bradley had to say after Saturday's match.
I'm hopeful for Lorenzo, but you got to see what happens as he's training and moving. If in certain training sessions he's not in a situation where he has to stretch for a ball or whatever, then maybe he thinks, I'm okay. But there still seems to be a little pain in certain moments as he has to reach out for a ball, the same way that it happened on the play in DC. So I'm hopeful that it's not, we did a scan. I think there's potentially another scan to make sure it's nothing more. The initial scan was very minor, but he's still feeling something with certain actions, and we want to be very careful about that. So I don't have a clear idea of what that one means.
Now, Sarah, of course, Lorenzo Insigne came in last year with a much fanfare. They rolled the red carpet out for him. Mm-hmm. But we're now at a point where this is a very big season for TFC. They're kind of at a crossroads right now. They spent all this money. I tell Mikey all the time that TFC is the best team money could buy, right? From a fan's perspective or a supporter's perspective, how worrisome is this that your biggest player just can't seem to get healthy at the start of a season?
Yeah, I spoke with Mikey about this actually as well. When they got Insigne from Napoli, he wasn't 100%. Mm-hmm. So they knew that going in. He's 34?
31.
31, okay. I aged him a bit there. But, he's past his prime, let's say. He's still playing football, but he's not what he used to be. So I think there were concerns there anyways. And I've been saying this, you can't just bring in a superstar and hope that that's going to make a team better. They have to fit with the team too. And it's really unfortunate, but I think they're really lucky that Bernadeschi is performing, and he was much better last year, and he's better this year. I think he's really more of the star, honestly. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's definitely concerning, and I would be upset if I was a TFC fan as well.
If I'm TFC, you're probably a little bit upset too. It's a big investment to a big player, mm-hmm. and if he's not on the field, TFC are in trouble, mm-hmm. and that is the narrative that's going around right now.
Now let's go to across the pond to the EPL. Big weekend that was. Arsenal 3-0 winners against Fulham.
Massive win.
My bet for Arsenal win the Prem is looking better and better as the day
Same
goes
with Drake
along.
And 21 Savages.
Exactly. Great minds think alike. But quickly with you guys, Sarah, we'll start with you then, Mikey. Your biggest storyline or biggest takeaway from the weekend that was in the Premier League?
Yeah, Arsenal's a great shout because they had a great game against Fulham. Mm-hmm. Like, it was a dominating performance. Oh, yeah. But I think for me, it has to be Liverpool and that loss to Bournemouth. They faced Bournemouth earlier this season and won 9-0. They beat Manchester United 7-0, and now they're losing 1-0 to Bournemouth. This team is in trouble, and they're fighting for a spot in European contention. Imagine no Liverpool in Europe at all. It's a possibility. There's something wrong with this team.
Liverpool's, coming from that 7-0 thumping over Manchester United to the point where they lose 1-0 to Bournemouth, a team they beat 9-0 earlier this season. That sort of encapsulates what Liverpool's season has been. For me, I got to look at the guy right behind me, and that's Casemiro in Manchester United. The red card that he took. Ooh. Casemiro has been so important, so good for Manchester United. That was one of the stupidest red cards I've ever seen.
You are out of order for that. That was a red card.
It was a red card.
Oh, okay. I thought you were saying
I'm saying
it was stupid of him.
Stupid of him.
Oh, for sure.
To do that. Because I was watching that game and it's not like big tackles are going in. It's not like it's an important part of the game. It's not even like a really important part of the field. But Casemiro decides to go studs up. And it was deserved a red card, and it changed the game for Southampton, a game Manchester United absolutely should have won had it not been for that red card. So that, to me, changed that game, and it also could change the trajectory of the season because now he's banned for the next 4 matches, including an FA Cup tie against Fulham next weekend. So not great
Fulham,
news for the
Newcastle,
Red Devils.
Brentford, Everton. Not games you want to miss.
Nope. Well, that'll be a great week in the world of soccer. TFC is back in action Saturday against Inter Miami.
Big game.
I'm sure we'll have you back on, Sarah, to talk some more soccer. We know we're going to keep on clowning on TFC, but the Whitecaps did lose as well on their winning list as well. We'll be right back with more on the Homestand Sports Show with Noor Zainab and the Toronto Raptors. Joining us now on the Homestand Sports Show is our NBA insider and the co-host with me on Hoop Talks, Noor Zainab. Noor, it's so much quieter in the office with you not here today, but it's a pleasure seeing you virtually today.
Don't worry, that's going to change tomorrow. How are you guys doing? Enjoy it while it lasts, okay?
We're good, man.
I don't know why I hear that joke all the time, yet I still laugh every time you say it. I gotta stop giving that to you.
Noor, you know what also is a joke right now? That Toronto Raptors road trip. Oh, you like that one, Mikey?
Come on, be nicer.
The Raptors fell to the Los Angeles Lakers after another fourth quarter collapse. D'Angelo Russell was cooking, and I mean cooking in a big way. And Nick Nurse was not happy post-game. He had this to say following his team's disheartening loss.
I'm always disappointed that they can't get any stops, right? And we held them to 15 in the third, and they get 15 in the first 4 minutes of the fourth. So, yeah, it was a tale of two lineups, really. The guys played really, really great basketball for lots of stretches. Just didn't get enough help.
Noor, once again, Raptors go off to a hot start. Horrible second quarter. Start the second half, great. Hold the Lakers to 15 points in the third quarter, and then fall apart once again in the fourth. What is up with your boys, man? They can't finish games.
It's a lack of defense. It's a lack of urgency. It's a lack of bench production, a lack of creative offense. I can go on and on and on and on. I think the problem with this team, though, is we keep saying that they're better than their record. They're a better team. They're a good team. They have good pieces. And the front office kind of bought into that when they became actual buyers, bringing in Jakob Poeltl. But at what point do you just look at this team and go, well, they might just be what their record really is? Because as much as we look at the past year and say it's the same squad, the same people, the same front office, but what's changed? And I couldn't really tell you. I think it's just guys not wanting to almost play together. It's a lack of defensive urgency. I'm even seeing guys like Pascal Siakam, who were brought into this league to play defense, falling off their guys. He's not defending anyone. He's at the spot. He's ready to go, but the guys are blowing past him. And we're just not seeing that happening all throughout. And this was the first game and since April of 2022 where we had two Raptors score 30 points simultaneously. And they couldn't buy into that having no LeBron in that lineup. So that's a problem.
And those two Raptors, Noor, that was OG Anunoby and Scotty Barnes. Those aren't their two leading scorers on most nights. It's Fred VanVleet and Pascal Siakam typically, but obviously those guys didn't really do enough to support. Also, Gary Trent, 0 points. Was he 0 for 9 on the night? Like, he had a rough shooting night. But you mentioned that this team's core, and I think we've come to the point where heading to next offseason, there are going to be changes with this team's core. Obviously, Fred VanVleet, Gary Trent Jr., and Jakob Poeltl are all pending free agents. Put on your Masai Ujiri hat for me for a second. Let's say you can keep 2 of those guys, but you have to let one of them go. Who's the one that you're letting go, and who are you keeping, and why?
I think looking at this team now, it's pretty obvious that you needed someone like Jakob Poeltl in that lineup. You need a center, and he's not a bad option either on the market. He's not maybe someone that you can perhaps contend with, but he's a good playoff option to have, even for depth. I would say if you can go acquire someone better, he's a good center. He understands the team. He has that chemistry with the player. So someone like him, I'm going to keep. But in terms of Freddie and Gary Trent, as much as I love Gary Trent, I love the spark he brings everywhere he goes. The nights that he's going off, those are nights that are entertaining to watch. But the problem is his lack of consistency. And we've seen that the past 3 games. He had 0 points against the Lakers. And because of that, now Nick Nurse is bringing up Koloko. He's bringing in Delano Banton. He's making sure that the 905 guys are able to come through. I think even Jeff Doughton Jr. Could have been a call-up, but he has 7 games remaining on his 2-day contract right now. So the Raptors want to keep that in case a rainy day happens or someone goes down and gets injured. But right now you're seeing the lack of consistency from him. And I think just based off of that, if he's not playing well offensively, what good is he really providing you in any other way? So you're going to have to keep Fred, who understands the team. And even if he's not going off some nights, he's still going to be the best defender for the other team's guard. But for Gary Trent, I'm just like, if he's not giving you anything offensively, what else will he provide? As much as I'm such a Gary Trent fan, so I'm going to have to see him go.
Gary Trent did not back me up on him being a starter.
No.
Did not show up. Now, speaking of starting and on the bench, the Lakers bench just abused the Raptors on Friday night. And again, the Raptors' lack of bench is biting them in the ass. Noor, what does Masai need to do to enhance this bench? Keep the Masai Ujiri hat on. Don't take it off.
Yeah.
Keep that dream going on because you know you're never going to get it. Right? Not in the world that I'm living in. But I'm the next in line for the Toronto Raptors GM job after Masai. But keep the Masai hat on. Tell me, how do you fix this Raptors bench? Because you can't go into next season with such a bad bench rotation like they have this year.
Shooting. Stop looking at length. Your Vision 6'9" was dead 2 years ago. It's not dead this year. It's this season. It was dead the second the dream came about. So at this point, you're seeing around the league. The league is, yes, this is what I have to say in terms of defense. I know people say defense wins you a championship, and I completely agree with that. But I think defense keeps you in games. Buckets get you the win. So at the end of the day, you need to have guys on your roster that can make those shots. And you're playing in a league where the 3-point shot is more it's taken in more than the field goals are, the free throws are. The 3-point shot is put on a pedestal. So if you don't have guys that can shoot, or even if you have guys that you rely on to be in the paint, now you're playing 3 versus 2 against other teams. Who's going to win? It's simple math. So I'm going to have to see more shooting come off the bench. I would like to see more developed prospects as opposed to developing prospects. I think we need to go out and get guys that actually know basketball. And I think it's time to also talk about basketball IQ. I wonder at what point are we looking at this team and thinking, obviously there's a lot of different things that are wrong, but I also think a lot of guys just don't make the right decisions on the court. And that has a lot to do with what your long-term vision is. And they have very tunnel vision when they're on the court. So I think that needs to be a big factor in who the Raptors want to go and bring in next time.
It's been such a weird Raptors season because 1 week we're talking about this team and we're like,
six seed.
Yeah, we're making a rush. This is finally the time where the Raptors turn this around. And this week we're talking about Raptors got to blow it all up.
They got a big week coming up, Mikey, though. 3 games at home, right? Against the Denver Nuggets, Oklahoma City Thunder, and Minnesota Timberwolves. Noor, I know we talk about this on Hoop Talks all the time, but is this the make or break week for the Toronto Raptors and their playoff or play-in chances?
I think we've been saying make or break since their back-to-back losses against the Magic back in December. And I think let's just give that up. This stretch really on the West Coast was what was going to be defining the Raptors run for the 6th seed and for the playoffs. they were supposed to get at least one win against the Wizards, against Nuggets, Clippers, and LA. They couldn't get even one there. So I'm not sure what the future of this team is going to look like for the next couple bit. But even now, whatever they win, it's going to be a tough task because you have to jump over a lot of teams in a very short span of time. So I think, to me, no matter what happens, they're looking like more of a play-in team. And as much as they're going to suck for other teams to play against in the play-in, even if they go past the playoffs, now you're looking at Boston and Milwaukee. That's going to be a tough round for Raptor fans all around.
Let me ask you then, Noor. So is this Raptors team all in on making the play? Like, is a play-in a decent result for this Raptors team at this point in time? Or I guess they don't have their first round pick this year, do they?
They have their first round pick this year, not next year.
So, okay, let me ask you it this way then. Would you rather this Raptors team miss the play-in, or would you rather them make the play-in?
Miss the play-in. There's no reason. Masai himself has said it countless times. Why would you play in for what? Like, what's the point of the plan? And as we talked about it too, you're next to all these teams, and as they are going to be a tough task for any play-in team to play against. But after you get over the hurdle, you have to now go in a series of 7 against the Milwaukee Bucks or the Boston Celtics, 2 teams that are way better than you, and you have shown no growth in trying to tackle that level of challenge. And at this point, should your growth and should the next look of the team be more important? And what better time than going into the draft than right now? I sometimes think the Raptors might just be losing on purpose, the way that they find lose every single game. So we might just see a draft pick this year anyway.
Never thought I'd hear the day Noor said, "Don't make the play-in, don't try to win," as the Toronto Raptors.
It makes sense.
Well, that's crazy, but it does make sense. It does make sense. Should we ask the Scotty Barnes question?
Yeah, let's do it.
Quickly.
So I gotta ask you about Scotty Barnes because he's like the Raptors, really up and down season. Obviously, he went off against the Lakers, and everyone's like, "Okay, that's it. Let's build the team around Scotty Barnes moving forward." Just as Scotty Barnes' season as a whole, if you were to give me sort of a letter grade for Scotty Barnes, A, B, C, or D. Let's go back to elementary school days. A meaning exceeding expectations. B meets expectations. How would you grade Scotty Barnes' sophomore season so far?
That's a great question. I think I'm going to give it a B. And the reason for that is it actually could be lower or even higher, but whatever Scotty Barnes is experiencing right now, or a lack of, we want to say, is not, I want to say, a direct correlation to his growth and his abilities. I think the fact that this team is struggling right now goes beyond one player. So I'm not going to hold him accountable for how this season's going out for his personal benefit, because again, like we said, this team is just struggling all around. So it's not like they have given him the right resources to be the best to his abilities. That being said, I think we have seen his struggles this season. We've seen where he shines and where he doesn't shine. So this was more of a developmental year for me to watch Scotty and see where we could be using him and utilizing him for a maybe like centering him as a core piece or just moving in the future. And the one thing I think we've realized too is, his first 3 quarters, and this has been the topic of Scotty Barnes this entire season, where he struggles in the first 3 quarters, but he's very good in the last quarter, in the fourth quarter. But and as much as it's frustrating and annoying to watch, and I think I've been a broken record on this to me bodes very, very well for his future, because it means that he's going to be not afraid of the lights.
Well, Noor, we want to thank you for joining us. We'll see you tomorrow in the studio for Hoop Talks to talk more Raptors. Joining us now on the Homestand Sports Show is BET99 ambassador and former NHLer Matthew Barnaby. Barnaby, how are you doing? And I know you're a big golf guy. What'd you think with the players and Scotty Scheffler getting the dub?
Yeah, $4.5 million. How are you guys doing today? Thanks for having me on. It was awesome. My wife is very happy it's over because I'm not going to lie, maybe bed sores from laying on the couch and in bed watching from 8 in the morning till 6 at night every day. So Scotty Scheffler, man, the guy's on a roll. Guy's cold as ice. The guy just doesn't feel pressure, and he just ran away with that tournament. But it's on the bucket list. I got to play that course. My son plays hockey in Orlando. They play in Jacksonville a lot, so I will definitely be making that trip next year. Just like an awesome course, great finish, and great job by Scotty Scheffler. Now we wait. Now we wait about a month for the Masters, the big boy.
I can't wait for that.
We were talking about it actually earlier on the show. TPC Sawgrass, like hole 17. Is that not one of the best holes in all of golf, especially from a spectator standpoint. I know players may not love it, but you gotta love 17 at TBC, no?
Yeah, I mean it's iconic. You can look at Pebble Beach. There's so many great holes, but I don't think anyone has a viewing that maybe 16 at the Waste Management, but certainly this is just a different feel. These guys, you put grass around that hole, it's the easiest hole in the world, like easiest hole in the world. You surround it with water, and it's ridiculous. So I can't imagine. Obviously, Scottie Scheffler didn't have to feel the pressure of trying to hit that right pin placement on Sunday when you got a 5-stroke lead. But I can't imagine going in being tied or one up going into that hole. It's absolutely ridiculous, but so awesome to watch. And for a viewer, just no bad spot behind the green. It's always jammed. Just so cool.
You know what else was awesome to watch? The Maple Leafs versus Oilers on Saturday night. Matthews, McDavid going head-to-head. A big win for the Maple Leafs, actually. They get down, and then they had a big second period. Barney, when you look at the Leafs and they win like that, just how much confidence does it give, a team that's, had some playoff disheartening moments, and to have a big win over Connor McDavid Saturday night in Toronto? What does that do for a team's psyche?
Yeah, I'm not big in cliches like, statement game or must win, all those kind of things. They aren't for me, but I think this is a statement game to themselves in the fact that Edmonton's a Stanley Cup contender. The Western Conference is a lot easier. Edmonton probably a little further down than they would like, but they still have the best player in the world in Connor McDavid. And the expectation is, with the additions of a guy like Ekholm to that lineup, Evander Kane last year having a good year, that they will contend. So I think when you're the Toronto Maple Leafs, we're not going to judge them until after the first round. They advance, or you're like, oh my God, Kyle Dubas, Brendan Shanahan, unbelievable job. Sheldon Keefe, give them all 12-year extensions. If they lose, it's the same narrative. But going back to your point, it's about the confidence. It's really about the confidence. And when you beat good teams, when you beat the best player in the world, and you kind of come back and really not just beat them by a goal, but you win it outright, I think it just sends a message to that team that we're a really good team. Expectations are where they should be. And let's get to the playoffs now. We want to roll, baby.
I thought during the course of that game, while the Leafs did well to come back, especially in that second period, one of the best periods of hockey, I think, in all of NHL this year, there was still some concerns about the Leafs goaltending. I know it's something we talk about all the time, but come on, some of those goals that Matt Murray let in, that didn't do anything to really raise his stock, did it?
No, not at all. Not at all. And that's going to be the narrative. Any which way we do it, when you get into playoffs, everything's magnified. Your power play, your penalty kill, and the most important position in football, it's the quarterback. You don't have a quarterback, you don't have a team. Trust me, I'm a New York Jets fan. We don't have a quarterback, and my thumb is sore from scrolling through Twitter to see when Aaron is going to be a New York Jet. So it's the same narrative again for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Who's going to be that guy? I've never believed that Murray, since the injuries, is that guy. He's had some good spots with the Toronto Maple Leafs, some bad ones. Samsonov has been really good at times. So curious to see how it all plays out in the last 15 games as they head into the playoffs, because you need a number one guy. You need a one guy that you can show belief in. They have 1A, 1B at there, or maybe 2A, 2B, whichever way you want to look at it. But again, that's going to be judged in the first round of the playoffs, not right now.
Crazy that we're still talking about Leafs goaltending with 15 games left to see who's going to be their star. That's insane.
Exactly. Now, you did touch on it. You mentioned Evander Kane earlier. Him and Michael Bunting kind of got into it in the game. That little wrestling match, and then post-game, in case you haven't heard it, this is what they both said post-game about each other.
Yeah, to be honest, I just was breaking out, and he got in my way and kind of held me all the way down, and I just tried to get to the net because I knew we were on a power play, so I wanted to get to my position, and then the rest unfolded. So yeah, it is what it is. I just stick to my game. I play every shift hard, and I try to compete out there, and I try not to let things bug me right now. So I'm moving on from it.
He likes to dive and embellish, and you want to get that out of the game, but they prevent guys from the consequences of those actions. A lot of the time they get in the way, sometimes the refs, and I think fighting is a great deterrent of those type of players and actions, and it just prevents guys from having to answer the bell. He's a perfect example of that.
Matt, you are no stranger to the messy stuff with the NHL like that, getting in the scrums and stuff like that. What do you make of Bunting and Kane going back and forth like that?
I love the era that we're in now with social media, and we're able to relive this. I would have loved to play with Instagram and Instagram Live and Facebook Live and Twitter, and rolling into a city like Toronto or rolling into Philadelphia, whatever it may be, just kind of taunting the fans and taunting the players, hopefully playing into their minds to take a penalty beyond me later. But listen, this is good for hockey. Why is the NBA so interesting? Well, because guys go at each other on Twitter or on Instagram, and we look for rivalries. We look for rivalries, entertainment. Listen, I'm not a WWE fan, but people tune in for their little rivalries and that skit. This is just part of the whole skit, and I love Evander Kane, and he's right. I love Evander Kane, the player, not maybe the person. That's a story for another day. But certainly can play the game. He's very, very tough. And Michael Bunting, don't fight him. So you don't need to fight him. It won't end well. And Toronto Maple Leafs fans, I don't think you want to see that happen either. But Evander Kane's right. The deterrent is fighting, and it's part of the game. And I think we're in an era now. I don't like comparing my era to their era, whatever it is. But the facts are, it's a lot easier to play and do things without consequence of retaliation.
Matt, Brad Marchand's so good at that. You mentioned the storylines and narratives coming into town. Brad Marchand knows when the spotlight's on him. But shifting things back to Michael Bunting, how has Michael Bunting avoided dropping the gloves for so long? He's in scrums. He's doing all the dirty work. He's taunting players. He's pissing other people off. Yet he's avoided dropping the gloves. I imagine in your era, there wouldn't have been a player that would have been able to do what Michael Bunting's done and not answered the bell, right?
No, because we didn't have to fear, grabbing a guy out of a pileup that's running his mouth or hit a guy, whatever it may be, or being in the scrums. You grab a guy, you beat him up, and oh my God, that's a 2-minute penalty. Score could be 5-2. Now, you wouldn't do it at 2-1 or 2-2 when the game's close or tied. But certainly as games get out of hand, if he's on the ice, it's a no-brainer. You're beelining to a guy like Michael Bunting. Unfortunately, in this era, fortunately for a guy like Michael Bunting and guys like Brad Marchand, who's very good at it, the best maybe ever, but they don't have to answer the bell. And if I was going to run my mouth and talk about guys' wives and their pets and what they did, how bad a player they were or whatever it may be, Stu Grimson was coming down, Ty Domi was coming down, all the tough guys, Bob Probert. So you knew it wasn't like, oh, I don't have to answer the bell. Oh, you're going to answer the bell. Either you're going to drop your gloves or I'm just going to beat the crap out of you. One or the other. You choose, but it's either option A or option B. So I'm going to take the extra 2 minutes. It's not a big deal at the end of the day. Now it's like a 10-game suspension, and they throw away the key.
Speaking of getting after it, we saw Austin Matthews and Connor McDavid get after as well. And me and Mikey were talking at the top of the show. That's really good for the NHL, seeing its two best players kind of, get into it, mix it up. Let me ask you this. Do you like to see that as well? The two best players in the NHL showing that emotion and just that physicality during the game?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love Austin Matthews. I love Connor McDavid. They're two of the faces of the NHL. And I just think it's the emotion shows that you care, and as we start ramping this up, I loved when one of our guys like Pat LaFontaine would get into it or Jaromir would push the guy. Now, we had to come in and protect him. We were all for it. But when you get back to the room, you're like, I love it. Love it. Way to go, Patty, or Peter Forsberg, whoever it may be. I got your back. Guys love that, especially from stars that aren't, it's not part of their DNA and not what you want them doing every single night. But once in a while, when you're going against each other and you just show your care, anything emotion-wise just shows that you care. And guys that don't have it, they don't stick around for very long.
And when it's star on star, imagine you're less inclined to have to jump in and protect your teammate, right?
Yeah.
That's fair game.
Yeah. unless the star was Eric Lindros on the other team, then you might have to jump in, or Chris Pronger.
Well, I got a hot take here for you.
Oh boy.
I'm so passionate about this. I think this part of his game gets overlooked, but we saw it on display on Saturday night. Mitch Marner, his ability to take away pucks, his ability to penalty kill. I think this guy, as good as he is offensively and as much clout as he gets for his offensive ability, I think this guy should get nominations for the Selke Award. I think he's that good defensively. What do you say?
He's a little bit, when you're talking about stripping guys of pucks, picking pucks off, penalty kill, all of that. He's very Datsuk-like in that fact, because he's so smart and he has such great hands. And if anyone out there that wants to watch the 12 minutes of best compilation of a hockey player, watch Datsuk. 12-minute video on YouTube. It's absolutely mind-blowing, and he's really the first guy to go like right under the hands instead of like at the stick. He goes under the hands and grabs it where you really have no defense for it. Having said that, I think you're absolutely nuts about Mitch Marner winning, because I think most of it, a guy like Patrice Bergeron, Datsuk, a lot of times they lined up against the other team's top lines every single night, whereas the Leafs a lot of times want to get that matchup that's favorable to them and don't go power on power all the time. So I think that would be a deterrent for them. But hey, you're thinking outside the box. I love it.
I'm gonna will that narrative into the universe, guys. I'm gonna push that.
we got about a minute and a half left, Barnaby. Give us your best bets for tonight's NHL slate. A light slate tonight.
A light slate. I got one game and I got 10 units. I got a big Colorado puck line. Let's go. I might even nibble a little bit on the Leafs. Playing Buffalo, always a tough game. I think it's going to be a very close game. I think the Leafs do win. That's where my money would go tonight. But Sabres are in the tank like Ottawa. No chance at making the playoffs. So another year of uncertainty for both those organizations, but both on the uprise. Go Toronto and Colorado, cover the puck line.
10 units.
That's
That's
big
a
one,
strong
eh?
believer in that one. I mean, yeah, the Habs they're out of it, obviously. And the Sabres are really interesting, right? You thought just 2 weeks ago they were going to make that push. They were going to get over the hump, but just 4-5-1 in their last 10 games. Now they got to go up against a Toronto team.
Yeah, look at Ottawa too, right? They were like 15-3-2 through like 20 games, and then they go on this Western swing. They get busted up 6-0 by Chicago. They find a way to come back after blowing the lead to beat Seattle, going to Vancouver 5-2, and then lose to Calgary. And it's curtains, boys. It's all over.
It's curtains.
Next year for Ottawa, maybe. Anyway, we want to thank you, Matt, for joining us today with some golf insight on the game of hockey. Take care. And now you get a break from golf. You can enjoy the rest of your week until the next golf tournament starts on Thursday.
Yep, and then it's 4 days straight of bed sores, and then
there you go.
I'll be in Arizona for the Masters for that week, so I'll play a little golf and watch a little golf, so it'll be fun. Cheers, guys, and Will, stop about willing Marner into that. Just think, Aaron Rodgers, New York Jets. That's what I want to hear.
Okay.
Throw in Lazard as well.
Take care, Matt. We reached the end of the show, but before we say bye, we got to give a shout out to the boys in the red and white. Canada, Mikey, destroyed, dismantled, dominated, waxed Great Britain in the World Baseball Classics. 18-8, the mercy rule got put in. Canada's got some ugly jerseys, but they did not play ugly yesterday, but they also had an ugly start, though.
Yeah, so at that time, that was the most amount of runs ever scored at the World Baseball Classic. However, it only lasted, I think, 24 hours because there's another team out there, I believe it was South Korea, 22-2.
Jeez, man.
So yeah, Canada's breaking records, doing well at the World Baseball Classic, but South Korea gotta one-up them a little bit. They still hold the record, though, for most runs combined in a game.
U.S. lost last night, too. I think to Mexico as well, and that team is stacked as well.
Stacked. Dominican, obviously, always the best team out there. Do you think, like, the mercy rule was turned into play here, that came into effect here? Do you think the mercy rule should be applied in other sports?
No, man. If you get beat, you get beat. Just like when you get beat like 10-1 in hockey, you deserve to get beat 10-1 in hockey. Like
I'm thinking about that Manchester United Liverpool game, 7-0. Like a certain point, let's
but that
maybe
just makes
call
it so much better, though. It makes the storyline so much better. Like I think if Canada should have played the last couple innings, let's see if they could have pushed 20 spot up on Great Britain, right?
Easy.
And we'll see. Like again, the Jays. What do you think about the Jays so far in spring training?
I love that baseball is just we're talking
You're a big baseball guy.
We're back around the corner. I love it. Yeah, Jays are on fire right now. Bo Bichette's looking really good. You say Kikuchi, former Mariner.
He's got a beard now too, right?
Beard, and he's looking really sharp in spring training. Got to give a shout out to another guy, Addison Barger. Yeah. The Jays, Rogers Center's renovated. I think it's gonna be a vibe this summer. It's gonna be really special.
They just announced those $20 general admission tickets too.
Look at that.
I think that's gonna be a really hot ticket. Just go in. have a couple beers in the summer, maybe kind of watch some baseball.
I think people were already doing that, like getting like the cheap 500 level
and just working
and then
your way,
just like working your
I don't know
way
if I
down.
should do this, but I think the first Jays game I went to in Toronto,
Yeah.
I got seats for the 500s against the Yankees. The year that they just were back in Toronto,
Okay,
right?
yeah.
It was the end of the season. They're playing the Yankees in September. We bought 500 level tickets, but I sat like 3 rows behind the Yankees bullpen.
Yeah, it snuck down.
It
eh?
just snuck
You
down.
weasel.
And this is when you could bring your own food into the game, too.
Oh, yeah.
Unreal, man. I bought a whole pizza in there with me. I think the Jays really need to bring that back.
In the summer, like a Jays game, second best game to go to
Yeah.
in Toronto. Best game?
I don't know about that.
Toronto FC.
No,
baby.
I'm not gonna get
BMO
into that.
Field, on the
Not
lake
gonna get into
shore,
that.
Sunshine
Not gonna get
down.
into that.
Oh,
Well,
such a vibe.
thanks again, Mikey, for joining us. We'll be back tomorrow on the Homestand Sports Show to break down more crazy stuff that goes on in the world of sports. Take care, everybody, and stay safe.